Coach, I was hoping to revisit the defense because it's not every day that you hold a top 10 team to 20 points and 4.7 yards per play. Looking back, just what did you think about the defensive effort?
Well, I thought it was awfully good. Probably wouldn't have gotten all that if we hadn't turned the ball over down there. But I thought, all of our youngsters played well. They played within the system. Coaches did really a marvelous job of preparing them. Thought we had some good fortune. There were some drop passes that were, substantial gains had they been caught. So we had some miscues in that regard. But collectively, if you tried to assess the play-by-play, snap-by-snap percentage, would be pretty good.
If I had told you that Stephen F. Austin would have 4 plays of 20-plus yards and Auburn would have 2 against you, what would you say to that?
I would say, we'll see.
That's the way it turned out. On the defense, especially against Artis Payne, terrific ball runner, and you'll face another one this weekend. What was the key to that, and at what point did you feel like maybe the defense finally, I don't want to say solved him, but was able to contain him the way they were?
Well, I think, we had some good fortune of having some additional preparation time. Now, Auburn had the same amount of time, but nevertheless, because it's responsibility football, it's option football, and for the most part, and so you have to be truly disciplined to focus on your assignments and not jump at things you shouldn't jump at. So it does take some patience, and that's with young guys that like to fly around and make tackles, etc. And so the added time I thought helped. I thought Coach Seiler did really a nice job with our defensive ends because there was an awful lot of pressure on them to play well in that ball game. So many responsibilities that they had. Part of it is being able to slow up the read plays or the options, and then be able to react either way, and be able to contain the sprint out passes and the bootleg passes. Just an awful lot of assignment responsible football that they had on their plate, and I thought they did quite well.
When I know a loss is a loss, but you look at the defensive effort in this game. You've had some great defensive efforts in your tenure. Did you have any flashbacks to any of those games back then?
No.
Excuse me. Sticking with the defense a little bit, you started to Corey Johnson and Travis Greene. Could you just talk about maybe the progression and patience they've displayed and working their way up to be in that position to play more?
Well, he's gotten substantially more repetition in practice because he's worked his way into that role. He runs well, and that's a benefit for our defense. So it was a matter of him being able to adapt to the system and understand his responsibilities, and having the discipline to carry out those responsibilities as we would like, and he's gotten better and better and better at it, and paid off for him this week.
Travis kind of the same thing?
Pardon?
Travis Greene kind of the same thing?
Travis is just, I guess you could say, both of them probably a work in progress. Could say that about a lot of young people. I don't mean that in a bad way. Just that, just gotten better, and the better they've gotten, the more repetitions they've gotten, the more repetitions, the snowball effect of continually getting better and becoming more responsible. Both of them are, reasonably good athletic young guys. The important thing is just being able to, play within the system, so to speak.
stick with the defense again. When you look at the numbers your run defense is allowing, just 2.9 yards per carry, that's down about a yard from last year and ranks pretty high nationally right now. What do you think has made that unit so successful through 3 games?
Well, I think the same thing, Kelly, that we were talking about. It's just being ingrained and being where you're supposed to be, and that takes a tremendous amount of discipline. And I think as we have enhanced our discipline, we have become a better defensive football team across the board. We still have, we still have issues. There's no doubt about that. But by the same token, as it relates to your question, defending against the running game, our guys in the front 7 and out of our secondary, have really done a very good job of maintaining that discipline and being where they're supposed to be.
And you guys face another pretty good runner this week in Aaron Jones. I'm not sure how much you know about him yet, but what impresses you about his style?
Well, I like the fact that, just as it relates to him as a player, that he's got some speed and can move around pretty well, but he's, he runs well and aggressively straight ahead. I mean, he's a good downhill runner, and he carries piles, and you can't arm tackle him. He won't allow that to happen. Now, he doesn't have great size, but he runs like a 215 or 20 pound running back, and so I admire that. I think, what is he, 3rd in the nation right now in rushing, 183 yards maybe, something like that. So he obviously has been effective.
Coach, is there maybe like one reason specifically, or maybe multiple reasons, why the offense at times when they get down to the red zone are struggling to put the ball in the end zone? Is there anything that you can kind of pinpoint as to maybe what their struggles are in finishing?
Well, it's a combination of things. I think part of it is, we've got to get into the right things. I think we have to have a stauncher mindset in regards to that area of the field. Probably need more work down there, but it's and it's my belief is that if you can move it out on the field, you ought to be able to move it down there. I mean, the field condenses a little bit, so in terms of the passing game, it's not quite as expanded as it would be out on the field. But aside from that, defenses are defenses and offenses are offenses, and you should be able, if you can move it on the field, you should be able to move it there. And normally we've been pretty decent at that. We've been ranked high in the nation in regards to what they call red zone offense, but we haven't. You go back to I go back to the Iowa State game, and those two, we settled for the 2 field goals in the 2nd and the 3rd drive of the ball game, and then we had the opportunities here. We had 4 possessions inside the 30-yard line or right thereabouts, and came away with 0 points out of it. So that's our misgivings, and we just, that doesn't answer the question. The question is why, and I can't tell you that I can give you a solid answer in regards to that. I just know we need more work down there, and we need to be able to select those things and put on the field those things that we do well.
And also maybe the status of Morgan Burns. Would you anticipate him playing this weekend?
I would anticipate that would be the case, yes.
Coach, what's the status of Mike Moore? I know he's stayed on the depth chart, but he hadn't played in the last couple of games.
Mike, in all likelihood, will receive a medical hardship this year, and in all likelihood be out for the season.
Coach, have you seen any evidence of Jack Cantelli putting the performance behind him, moving on this week?
Well, I think so. I'm not deep into his mind, so I couldn't tell you that, and you wouldn't know that either. But I think he's a strong young guy. I admire his willingness to, and it wasn't all, certainly all him, but he stepped forward, and as I said, I admire and appreciate that a great deal. But as I've said, our players for 20 some odd years, it's not one individual or not one play, or there's 170 snaps in a ball game, and so you got 170 opportunities to to make positive or negative things happen. That so I mean, there's too many. There's too many things that can go positively or negatively for you to blame, one individual. That's inappropriate.
I suppose I have to ask though: has there been any consideration of a change in personnel there at kicker?
Well, it's the same as it always has been. I mean, every day is competitive, and so going into this week, we'll have competition, not just for that spot, for virtually every spot. Now, some of them realistically, you say, well, who's going to beat B.J. Finney out or somebody, like that. And the honest answer is, okay, it's probably not going to happen. But the approach is that we want it to be competitive, every single day, and that just makes number one and number two better, and number two is going to have to get on the field at some point in time. It's just the nature of the game.
Coach, back to UTEP's running game. It's kind of odd in this day and age to go against back-to-back opponents that are so committed to the run first with all these spread offenses. But how does UTEP vary maybe a little bit from what Auburn attempts to do with their run game?
Well, tremendously different approach, and Auburn is is spread out immensely and an awful lot of option type football. UTEP is condensed formations. The two backs, sometimes two tight ends. More of there's a deceptive running game, counters, etc. But it's also a power running game to go along with it, and that wasn't necessarily Auburn's cup of tea.
Much more traditional than.
Well, I guess what you might call traditional, but we were talking about throwbacks. Is that what we're saying? Yeah. Okay. To a certain degree, yes. Yeah. More so than not, probably.
Coach, I'm curious as to your thoughts through 3 games about the running back position for your guys, and do you anticipate maybe just using those 2 guys just throughout the entirety of the season?
Well, until one of them breaks a play for about 70 yards. When that guy does that, then he's it. He's the guy. But hadn't happened yet.
But are they both bringing to the table what you hope that they would?
Well, nobody ever, brings to the table what I hope they will, but the expectations are pretty high. But by the same token, they've both played well, and I have no complaints about either one of them.
Is Jarvis just a touch behind those guys at this point, would you say?
Well, just because he's losing the experience, the value of experience, probably, falls a little bit further behind right now than when we started. Yeah. Just can't play that many.
Coach, the old adage you always use: the greater investment, the greater the pain. And this was a tough one, but understanding the lessons learned by a vastly experienced squad from a year ago, where do you see the mindset of this team right now coming off this particular loss?
Well, I think right now, based on yesterday's practice, I thought it was positive. I thought they, regained some spirit. I thought there was, a determination that was there. I wouldn't have said the same thing Saturday. We practiced Saturday, and I wasn't enamored by the way many of the youngsters practiced, but I think we had a heart-to-heart. I think they've overcome that. seemingly. At least that's true as of yesterday. We're working on today.
A unique game like that. I mean, a top 10 non-conference opponent, obviously here. What's the message to the team throughout the week coming off of an emotional game like that?
Well, it's at some point in time here, rather quickly, and by now, we have to, as anybody would say, you have to have it behind you and be re-engaged in the upcoming opponent. I mean, UTEP is has a capacity to be a very fine football team. They're a very aggressive football team. They fly around, they play hard, and those kind of teams can always create issues for you. And if we're emotionally caught off in a variety of different things, and you get knocked on your backside.
Coach, how would you assess the play of Jake Waters up to this point? Are you pleased with how he's reading his progressions, maybe some of the plays he's checking to? I mean, do you like where he sits right now?
Well, I think he's still got a ways to go. Quite obviously, if he continues to improve, then I'll be pleased. I mean, he's done some very fine things, and yet he still has those moments, and which is true of virtually any player, I would think. So it's just I don't want to say a work in progress, but he's continually. And he's, as I've said before, I think he's dedicated to that improvement. And if he continues to be that, and and engages in that honest self-assessment, trying to enhance his performance level in a few different areas, then I think he'll do fine.
With a guy with a skill set that has the kind of the mind to read defenses and be able to check at the line of scrimmage, I mean, is it one of those things where you give him maybe a little bit more free rein than you have in the past with the offense?
Well, I don't know if it would if I'd relate it that way. I think our system or our method is to do exactly that. We like to have quarterbacks that have the capacity to get yourself out of the potentially bad plays and into potentially positive plays, and do what you just suggested, is understanding defensive schemes, etc. And the more capacity they have to do that, the more responsibility that we'll provide for them. And we've had a number of quarterbacks who have been, who we've given full rein to over the years. So it's that's not an uncommon thing to do for us.
And you would say that he has that full rein?
He's close.
Coach, give me for another schematic question. All these Saturdays off for letting me watch a lot of college football. As they say, everything that's old is new again. And it struck me in watching Oklahoma that against West Virginia, they seemed determined to line up and run the ball with power, maybe more so than they've done in quite a while. Do you see maybe this conference tacking back towards maybe more running than spreading the field and throwing it all over the place?
Well, I haven't seen everybody play, so I don't really know. And I saw just a little bit of that game. I think it is kind of what goes around comes around, and the idea that there's that thought out there that because the game got so spread out that everybody wanted smaller, faster people on the field so they could run around and match up with with the offense. And now offense is beginning to converge back inside where they outman you, just physically. I don't know if that's really, I mean, I hear it, but I don't know if that's really totally true. Like I said, I haven't seen everybody. And I think virtually every team, not all of them, but at some point in time you come to realize you better do what you guys can do, what your players have the capacity to do. And it appears that, you know, they've got an awfully fine running back down there, and, you know, it doesn't make sense not to give him the ball. So, you know, what's the best way to do it? You know, who knows? But, you know, if they condense things down or tighten things down and run the ball a little bit more, that's certainly understandable. But, you know, the other thing is they have the capacity. I mean, they can spread you out and, you know, do the other things as well. So, you know, you wouldn't want to, if you were trying to defend them, you wouldn't want to hang your hat on the fact that they're going to tighten down and try to knock you off the line of scrimmage. So they can do all of it.
You've used 2 different long snappers this season, one for punt and one for placement. I was curious, is that unusual for you guys to go with that? And it seems like the skills you use for the 2 different areas are kind of different. Is it? I was just curious how common, or if you've done that before, or if there are certain advantages, disadvantages.
Well, you know, there was some reasoning behind, you know, coverage becomes, you know, depending on whether it's punt or whether it's field goals, you know, coverage becomes significant. And, you know, on our punt unit, we wanted somebody that covers well, and Dalton does a nice job in terms of the coverage, and snaps are fine. We wanted a little bit more size inside on the field goals, but you know, that's interchangeable, and both of them are interchangeable because both of them can snap the ball well. It's kind of some of the other values that are that those positions are responsible for. But I can't tell you whether I think we probably have, none come to mind right now, but I think we've, you know, used 2 different snappers with punt and field goal before. So, but we'll probably. Uncertain right now, but the possibility is that we'll start, you know, 1 at both positions this weekend.
And do numbers become an issue at all with that, with travel squads and stuff like that, or do you usually carry 2 of them?
Well, you better carry 2 snappers. You know, you don't want to have to punt and there's nobody to snap the ball back, because I can't do it, I assure you. So, yeah. So, yeah. Well, 70. I mean, that's an issue. Period. You know, that's a rule that has to be changed, and I'm pretty sure will when the new stuff comes out.
Coach, one of your former players, Ben Leber, will be here on Saturday working with the TV crew. What do you remember most about him as a linebacker playing for you?
Ben was one of those guys that just always, like we were talking about a little bit earlier, you know, knew how to get himself in the right spot. You know, he was very reliable, dependable, disciplined. He's, you know, wasn't necessarily flashy. He was just a guy that got where he needed to be. And, you know, and he was reasonably decent size. He had good range to him, you know, with height, which is, you know, always a benefit. But I just think his reliability, you know, as much as anything. Plus being I mean, you know, what I really remember about him is he's, you know, an excellent young man. You know, I've admired how he handled himself and on and off the field and all those things. He was good.
First half of the Iowa State game, a lot of penalties. You cut it down the second half, but you always talk about correcting mistakes at the time off. No penalties against Auburn. How pleased were you with that?
Well, that's, you know, I mean, that's a step forward. You know, but along with no penalties comes no turnovers, and we turned the ball over. So I wasn't too pleased about that. But but I do like the, you know, the discipline element. It's easier, I think, in all reality. It's a little easier probably playing at home than it is on the road, but, you know, that can be an excuse as well. But we need, when we, all the time, whether it's home or away, we need to continue to do exactly that. Gives you a better chance, I think.
Hey, Bill, going back to what Fitz asked you about what goes around comes around, is that, you've seen a lot of this stuff work over the years. Is that one reason why you have so much in your playbook? Because there's stuff that does work.
That's pretty close. You know, as I said a moment ago, you know, you better do what your 11 guys can do on either side of the ball. So, you know, our playbook, if you will, really encompasses virtually anything and everything. I mean, it's all there, as you alluded to, but we don't use all of it, you know. But over a period of time, we do. Just kind of depends on, you know, who the 11 guys are out there, and you try to draw from that collective notebook those things, knowing you can't do it all, but those things that kind of fit the personnel that you have, and that's kind of the approach we've always taken, you know, over the years.
Also, this is kind of off topic, but you guys are going to honor the Topeka police officer who was slain. I was wondering if you'd heard anybody share any stories with you about him, and K-State grad.
No, they have not. We've been in touch with his wife, Lori, and trying to, you know, make all the arrangements, because I want it to be a comfortable time for them as well, and not, you know, too hyper, etc. But no, I didn't know the gentleman, and haven't heard any. You know, I get a lot of correspondence since we've, you know, initiated contact with them and with their children. All of our players, you know, each player wrote the children and the family. So I mean, we try to engage them, you know, the very best we can. It's a hard time for them, as we all know. But I really don't know a great deal about them either. So.
Coach, in a perfect world, what would you like to see, kind of the way this non-conference wrapping up? I mean, is there specific anything that you would like to see from your team, you know, as the non-conference kind of wraps up and you get into conference play?
Anything I would like to see this weekend, you mean?
Yes.
In this ball game? I just want to see us play as well as we can play. I mean, that's, you know, my wants are the same week in and week out. You know, and you can break that down and, you know, eliminate penalties, turnovers, and all that type of stuff. But I mean, it's always the same. I just want us to play as well as we can. It wasn't, you know, losing a ball game last week is one thing, but, you know, what disturbs me more than anything else is just whether we play as well as we possibly can. And when we do, you know, I can live with that, you know, and, you know, if we don't, then that's always a concern, because the capacity to do that is always there. You know, it just depends on how you prepare yourself.
Coach, you say that the last week is behind you guys. That's important to put it behind you. Just some people might think that K-State's going to go out this weekend and take out a lot of aggression and anger from that loss. Is that something that you don't subscribe to because it may be counterproductive?
Well, I subscribe to the anger factor, you know, because that's human emotion. I think, you know, unfortunately, the first thing that happens is you feel bad and you feel sorry for yourself, and that's not a good emotion to have, not in competitive athletics, and probably not in life as it is anymore. And that eventually turns into that anger that you're addressing, and I think that's, you know, that's human nature. That's the way we're built, and I think it's a good thing. You know, if the anger is directed the right way, and if it's directed towards improving mistakes, you know, being angry about the things that we didn't do as well as we should in order to, you know, play better than we did or coach better than we did, then I think it's a positive. If we're using it that way to correct those things, then I think it's a positive thing. You know, just to go out and hit somebody and knock somebody around, that's the nature of the game. That's not a product of, you know, losing last week, I don't think.
And then if I could follow up, totally off that topic though, another a tackle suspended indefinitely or dismissed from the team at Texas today. Have you been watching these types of behaviors not only in college football but in the NFL, and how does it translate to the way you coach, and you're referred to as this as doing such a great job with your players, and how do you value that type of praise, that type of reputation that you have?
Well, what I value are young people that are willing to make the commitment that it takes to be successful in a, you know, in a family, team-oriented environment. You know, and you're absolutely right. I mean, it's and we address it with the players. I do. You know, we talk, I mean, it's every single day there's 1, 2, 3, 4 that are you know, involved in. You know, whether they're dismissing the teams or not is not the issue. It's just that they're involved in things that that you and I probably don't see as being appropriate. Now, maybe if you're 19 years old, you say, hey, you know, that's the way life works now. And yet, you know, if you're trying to do something productive in an athletic environment like collegiate football, those other things don't fit. I mean, they don't work in that venue, and it is disturbing, I think, to see, you know, so much of it. And it, you know, in all reality, it concerns me just about, you know, society and, you know, where we're going. I think everybody realizes things have changed dramatically, but, you know, good is normally good and bad is normally bad. You know, I don't know that those things really, some may view, well, times are changing, therefore bad can become okay, and so on down the road. But you know, I don't subscribe to that personally, but I'm excuse me, I'm proud of our players when, you know, when they do well, because it's not an easy thing to do. You know, I understand that well, I say it's not easy. There are a lot of influences on young people today. I mean, you leave this complex and you're around 20,000 other people your own age, and they all do a lot of different things, and it's so easy to perhaps to get, you know, caught off in some of that. Now, when I say it's easy to, I think it's also easy to do things right. You know, you just decide this is what I'm going to do, and that's what you do. You know, the issue becomes you look at all the stuff that's happening, and who does that hurt? You know, in all reality, it probably hurts your family, hurts your teammates, hurts all those people around you. You know, you may not accept it as something that's painful, but there's a whole bunch of other people that do, that count on you, that rely on you, you know, to be the kind of person you should be.